Another week, another locals, my friends. We are going to be back with branded Dracotail, trying to take the double first place in a row. We've been doing very well with this deck, at least at a local level. Hasn't so much transferred to the regional level, but that's why we are trying to learn from those regionals that we flunked out on, using the things I learned to create a build that will perfect branded Dracotail for this format. Now, we are still going to be on the 60 card engine, and of course this build that we started trying out as of last week is running the card Allura Darkness. Now, Allura Darkness, of course, is one of those cards in the past that has been ran in branded Despia to quite some success, right? You're able to banish your Tragedy, banish your Mercurier, and then just get insane searches off of it. I do think we're onto something with the Allura Darknesses that I haven't quite seen other people on, so I want to stick with that idea as of right now, just to see if we, struck gold. And then also subscribe. We are on the road to 20k. Let's go to locals.
Not the DP.
Yo, fight is crazy.
Yo.
It looks so cool.
Yo,
Good.
like Starlights are going for about. Just want, I want to see it. Everyone are
Rain is going to kill me. Red is finally crashed.
We'll say, what now? So, these three, that last one is, oh wait.
That's a good hit.
I know, I was very happy.
It's a good ass fucking hit.
Yeah, it's funny, but that's insane.
Yeah, this is just funny.
Alright.
Kyle, where are you playing tonight?
Okay,
Are you excited to use it for the first time?
Yeah, I am. I'm so excited. I want to see a custom. So, let's just do them out.
What, just literally fire Holisu? Fire Dark
Spell,
Holisu?
Mad Love, Ash. This one I'm guessing is probably. Okay, that hand's not that good.
Oh well.
Oh well. Double has always had an
Yo, Sam, imagine if I actually called my...
All right, so we're gonna have game one here against my good friend Wheels. He is going to be on Fiendsmith Sprite, so it's a little bit of a throwback here. He's gonna go first, and I'm gonna open Perulia. He opens up the Tract, sends the Lurie, summons the Lurie, gets out the Fiendsmith Requiem, goes out to the Lacrima. Really standard Fiendsmith stuff right here. And honestly, opening the Perulia here doesn't feel that great since Fiendsmith can just play completely around it. But this does, since I don't know he's on Sprite yet, this does keep him off the Sprite cards unless he wants to give me a bunch of draws. So here he just ends up going to the Caesar, and he's currently contemplating on going the rest of the cards. He does choose to give me a draw off the Swap Frog, and which gets him into the Ice Barrier engine. So he is playing Ice Barrier Fiendsmith Sprite, so he gets to also end on a Toad on top of a Caesar. So this board's looking pretty good. However, I am at this point having a couple draws. He even gets the Azaroon statue, which is pretty cool, but then I get to draw for turn. I get to use Branded Lost, and Branded Lost is such a good card, but that ends up getting destroyed by Toad, so I end up just going Shrouded Dragon to send the Branded Retribution, so I can immediately loop the Branded Lost and get a draw on top of that. He does chain the Requiem to get the Lacrima in rotation, so he can send the Fiendsmith in Paradise, presumably, to the graveyard, and then I go Branded Lost again, and then go Rahu. And Rahu under Branded Lost is a really devastating combo, right? Because this completely gets over the Caesar, this gets around his Desiree, and so I end up going into Altharion while also sending Phimina, so I get to basically search under Lost, get my Dracotail extension, and then all without my opponent being able to respond. I could even return his monsters, but I don't need to at this point when Branded Lost isn't being threatened. I can just get the Ketu, search the Urgalug, and then just basically pop his monsters because he can't respond to the Gulamel, which is usually the issue. And here I can just go off from here, right? Fusion deployment. This is why you really like the branded Dracotail version, because the cards synergize so well with each other. You can run Cartesia, and it goes so hard between the two engines. And he finally ends up getting rid of the Branded Lost because the Azaroon rune, but at this point it's way too late, and then I just go Branded Fusion, and he scoops it up for game 2. Here I just end up siding in some board breakers, obviously. I think that the strategy with the Sprite Fiendsmith cards, it really just, you want to see cards that will board break and get you to a point where you can simplify their board state. Even Mulcharmies are pretty good against, obviously, the Sprite variant of this, or part of this deck, and then the Fulos is good against the other part, so I'm going to go second. I see he draws Cross, or Fiendsmith in Paradise plus the red. I do Perulia him again, so I get pretty lucky in that regard. He doesn't have an answer for that. I don't believe. He might, but he's I think I see an Ash Blossom, so he's currently debating on even ashing the Perulia, but I think the rest of his hand is a brick, so he's going to probably choose not to ash it, and then he just passes to me. So then I go Grass Looks Greener, and he ashes that, so that ends up going away, but, you know, I still have some more, so then I go Cartesia, and then just chain Rahu, and I'm just off to the races, sending Phimina and the Urgula, and then I can go to the Altharion, set the Ketu plus the follow-up, and then I just go into Ketu to try to bait hand traps. I get the Lucius, and then I go Phimina, fuse off the Lucius plus the Altharion for the Gulamel, and set another Rahu since I don't have the traps in my deck, going second, and then I go Cartesia into Grand Guignol, and he just scoops from there. And now we go to round 2, and this is against my good friend Sam. He is going to be on Marincess. This is one of the last weeks he was able to play with Splash Mage, actually. And this is a basically water snake eye kind of deck. It has so many 1-card combos that you can actually set up a pretty decent hand. It has one of its new cards which allows you to hand rip, and he sees my hand. I have like Lucius, I have Super Poly, I have a very good hand, honestly. So he kind of just sees what's coming to him, essentially. He goes Crystal Heart into the Argonaut, which is a spell negate that does not negate activation, so you can't reuse the spell card most of the time. That does negate. So I do kind of contemplate here how I'm going to do this. I do go normal summon Lucius, but he changed the wave. I then go Branded in white, so I could possibly try to bait the Argonaut, and he does use the Argonaut there, which special summons out the Coral Triangle, and then I go Branded High Spirit, sending the Phimina and the Grand Guignol to the graveyard, which is why I love running the 2 Grand Guignol, so I can get out to the Shrouded, and then I go Shrouded, send the Retribution, and then he has the Dominus Impulse for the Branded Fusion, and that will be game 1. He just had it all, basically, so yeah, very well done. So we do go into game 2 here, and I'm going to be going first, of course, and this is one of those points where I end up siding out a lot of my non-engine that is usually good for going first, like Super Poly, and, you know, if I am maining the Mulcharmy Fulos, it's one of those cards that definitely is the first to go out. And now I choose to go first. I draw Branded High Spirit. It's a pretty strong hand. I send Fallen of Albaz plus the Titanclad. This is a great way to insulate yourself through Ash Blossom, so I do search the Cartesia and then special summon it since I do have the Albaz in the graveyard, and then I go Shrouded Dragon to then send the Retribution to further try to get into some pretty good cards, and then I go Cartesia, fuse off the Tragedy, go into the Grand Guignol, chain blocking the Grand Guignol with the Tragedy, searching the Aluber, sending the Saronir so I can finally connect myself to the Branded Fusion with the Retribution, and here I go Aluber effect now to search out the Branded White to play through any sort of Ash Blossom, and he does have the Dominus Impulse, so at this point I do go Branded White since I do have the Albaz in the graveyard, which means it is a basically a miracle fusion where I can banish monsters from the graveyard as long as I use Albaz. Then I go Lubellion into the Mirror Jade, which effectively gives me the same end board that I was going for if I had resolved Branded Fusion. And then I go into end phase, give myself the Cartesia, summon out the Quem off the Titanclad, and then set one, which is going to be a fusion duplication, which allows me to resolve Branded Fusion. So in the draw phase, I just go into the Sanctifier line and go into going into Sanctifier and sending the Ido from my deck. This is one of the most deadly lines in Branded. It's a very good Fulos line as well, and he just scoops from here. Now, you might be wondering why did I do that in draw phase, because, you know, there are certain effects that in main phase you don't want to be activated against Marincess in particular. I don't think I had to do that in draw phase, but, you know, this was kind of earlier in the format where, like, Dracotail was basically everywhere. It's still everywhere, right? Especially post ban list, but I think that Dracotail especially, just like you want to do your lock and draw phase if you are able to. And now I'm going to be going second, so obviously just any kind of board breakers or just like ways to not die in time here is going to be pretty important. So he does go first, and he is going to basically normal summon the level 4, which just allows him to go there. But I do have Fulos at the very least, which is pretty good. And he does have an answer for the Fulos, but he does get to hand rip. I do have the Shaddoll Fusion, Ido, Quem, and a bunch of other options. So I'm going to be able to get a bunch of draws, and Sam is the type of player who just would rather give you the draws and then set up his board and make you play through it, which is certainly a strategy through the Ido, or through the Fulos. But I do have the Phymena plus Albaz and Quem, which gets me to the Albion, but he does have the droplet for that, which is fine with me. And that does give him a target for the Marincess Wave, which can be annoying, but obviously the main thing with beating Marincess is to get rid of their field spell, because then their boss monsters don't get the attack point boost, and such and so forth. Yeah, they will be unaffected by Wave, but as long as you can attack over, it's fine. I have a huge hand at this point. Shaddoll Fusion, Ido, Fusion Deployment, Thrust, Ketu, Red, and Rahu Enshrouded. So he does have the talents here to hand rip me an actual hand rip, because of course the in-engine Marincess only gets to look at the hand. This actually does get to hand rip, and he does have a huge thing here on the spin back, and honestly he does choose the red, which is pretty understandable because of the fact that I do have the Albaz in the graveyard. Oh no, he chooses the Thrust because that will just get me to anything else, so that does make sense. But the fact that I do have the red for the Albaz is huge for dodging the wave, so here I'm looking pretty good, all things considered. And here I go Ketu Dracotail, and since he does have a monster on board, I will be able to fuse, and this does force his board, I feel like, because then I just get the Urgula, and then I get to fuse off the monsters in my hand in order to go into the Dracotail cards. This is why the Dracotail cards are so good in Branded, because it lets you board break with Engine. And then you can also just trigger your effects. It gives you Spell and Trap card pops, non-target, and on top of that, non-target negate. So now I destroy his Marincess Battle Ocean, which gets rid of his whole strategy. I just basically win from here, guys. Like, he could have any sort of hand traps, and I have like a 7-card hand. I have so many 1-card starters at this point, he just won't be able to start. He just won't be able to do it. But he does negate the Rahu with the Argonaut. I do at this point just go normal summon Quem. He does have the Marincess Wave. I do chain the Brandon Red to fuse off the Quem, so it doesn't give his monsters unaffected. And then also I can just go Albion here, fusing off itself into the Chaos Star Source plus the Urgula for a pop 1. He does have the Marincess in the graveyard to prevent the destruction, though, so that was a good play by him. I do go Brandon High Spirits here, once again sending the Gwignol plus the Phymena. I probably should have chained this to the Argonaut, so I would have been able to trigger the Grand Gwignol in resolution, but that's fine, because I am just going to go Branded Fusion here, sending the Fallen of Albaz on top of the Tragedy. Instead of going into the Albion line, since I already went to Albion, so I do search the Luber follow-up and then go into the Mirror Jade. And this is going to give me more than enough to really just do what I need to and go battle phase, and then just like destroy his board state. You know, bashing the Argonaut, attacking over the last monster, and just going for game here. So GG's to Sam, very well done. And here is going to be our final round against Nick. Shout out to Nick. He's going to be on Dracotail, and he Perulias me. And so in draw phase, I go High Spirits once again. I'm sending High Spirits the whole day with Gwignol. That's why I love double Gwignol, especially when you're locking or just for triple High Spirits builds. I go out to the Cartesia to dodge Imperm on the kit. I search out Branded Fusion while also insulating myself through the Ash Blossom with High Spirits, and you guys know where I'm going from here. I'm really just going to get the full combo, and honestly, in the Dracotail Branded matchup, it's really a die roll dependent matchup. If Dracotail can go first, like, there's no reason why they shouldn't win if they know how to interact with you a lot of the time, unfortunately, with just how it is. But the thing is, a lot of people just don't know how to interact with Branded. Nick has played against me for weeks now, so he's getting really good at it. He's now going to nib me on the Lubellion, or after I go Lubellion on Lost, which it was definitely a misplay. I told him afterwards, it's like, you should nib, the best nib spot on Branded is right before you go Lubellion effect to set Lost. But now I can go Grand Gwignol effect to banish itself to summon the Quem, and then in the end phase get the Branded in red while also having a Albaz in rotation, since I still have Branded Lost. So I'm just going to be able to lock here by going Quem, summon out the Mirror Jade, and you know, I could just essentially go from here and do whatever I really want to. I search out the Mercurier, and here I'm just going to end up passing to him, and this is a pretty good situation overall, but he does end up using the Jokel in hand to summon out the Lupus, and here I'm just going to go Mirror Jade to banish the Jokel. That's one of the best targets, but he does have the Malulu here in order to fuse off, and I'm going to Mercurier that, and he only has 2 cards in hand, so he doesn't have a ton of options, and I didn't really need to lock here, honestly. I could have went for the lock, but he did have the Ash Blossom 2, which is interesting, so I do have a pretty good setup against him, even with him only being on one card now, and he is contemplating on what he really has to do here. I mean, Dracotail can play into our board, obviously, but it's not really that great. So he does go into the Gulamel here, and Gulamel is going to trigger off of the effects, but this isn't going to be enough for Nick. It just doesn't do quite enough, so he's going to scoop game 1. In game 2, I'm going to be siding in going second cards, obviously, into Dracotail. I think it's kind of hard a lot of the time. I really like evenly matched, all things considered, because it is a very good side into Dracotail. They can't negate it. Like, the thing is, you want to play around their traps even resolving, because their traps can give them a draw 2 to 3, so you don't want them drawing those hand traps, plus negating the Dracotail Flame is so devastating against the branded cards. So yeah, no, I do open Perulia, though, once again, and he does trigger the Azuna, but this is fine. But then, because then I have the Fuelos, which I actually believe I drew off of Perulia, and then he goes into Fenrir, which is pretty good, and then he ends up setting a card, and he is debating on what to do here, and he's just going to pass, and I'm going to... And this is, like, the best kind of situation you want to be in against Dracotail. That's why I think the Mulcharmies are probably overall just the best cards into this deck. He does go into Nash Knight off the Lupus, which is totally fine with me, and then I go branded opening, sending the Sarnier, summoning Quem, and then I am able to get into the branded fusion here while also sending a Fallen of Albaz and drawing a card. Going for the Retribution, getting the branded fusion. Now I get to go for a Luber, and a Luber gets to search out a branded loss, but he does Solemn Strike that, which is fine, and then I go branded in High Spirit, sending a Grand Guignol once again. It's crazy how many times I High Spirits for a Grand Guignol. Now I get out to the branded fusion, and he does have the Ash Blossom, which is pretty solid, all things considered. He might actually just still have it because of that. And I don't have a whole lot of follow-up. He gets to go Malulu into Gulamel, and that's going to be game 2. So we almost had it. We just didn't have any extenders. It was kind of a bad hand. It happens, right? So we're going to go into game 3, of course, and game 3 is going to be pretty fun. Game 3 is going to... obviously, I'm going to be going first. This is exactly where you want to be against Dracotail, honestly. Because if they're able to go first game 3, you know, whether they're locking you with window or just setting up a really big board with their traps and, you know, Femina, it can be kind of annoying with all those hand traps and draws. Like, draw 2 to 3 is just crazy. So I'm really happy I'm going first here. Now I go Lubellion, searching the Sarnier. That's why I think getting the game 1 against this deck is so important with branded or branded Dracotail. At least your engine kind of outgasses them, so you have a lot of potential, especially if they misplay. He does trigger the Azuna here when I go Fusion Deployment, so he can try to get out to a Nash Knight, presumably. I do chain the opening. He goes Lupus, and I'm going to discard the Sarnier, go for a Luber. Notice I have not normal summoned yet, and he goes into the Nash Knight. And that's a non-target take to attach, basically, to Nash Knight, which is pretty good against branded. You can get over things like Sanctifier with that, so you never want to have a Sanctifier on the board with Nash Knight. I'm going to go for the Brandon White, since I have Retribution, which is just going to be a polymerization, essentially, as long as I use a Dragon. At this point, since I don't have an Albaz in rotation, at least from the field or graveyard, I might have one in my hand at the moment. But he is going to Nash Knight at this point and take the Cartesia, which is fine. If I chain Cartesia, that wouldn't have mattered. And I fuse off the Gulamel plus the Tragi in hand with the Cartesia so that I can go out to the Altharion. Altharion is going to be able to bounce and then also get me into the Rahu. And here, since I haven't normaled, I'll just go Quem normal, summon the Fallen of Albaz. And here I'm just going to go basically full combo, right? You know, I have the Rahu Dracotail in order to go into the rest of my Dracotail stuff, and then also going into Branded Fusion, so while also recurring the Femina, but he does have the Ash for the Branded Fusion, which is pretty good. So, but I'm going to, you know, with him only on 3 cards in hand, I'm able to set up enough interruptions, hopefully, to basically play through that. That's what I love about Branded. It doesn't really necessarily lose to Ash anymore, as long as you know the lines. He does special summon out Fenrir. And I go out to Secretarion Dragon, and just by using the Femina, so I can actually trigger the Gulamel to pop the Fenrir, which is pretty smart. He goes normal summon Lucius, searching out Femina. He goes Femina effect. I go branded in red, and branded in red is going to get checked, I believe, by something. And oh yeah, he has the Ghost Spell. And at this point, I'm going to go Grand Guignol. Grand Guignol effect is going to summon out the Quem. The second Quem at this point, I do have Secretarion, but he also has Secretarion on the board, so I can't really go Quem. He goes Lupus here, and this is definitely a grind game at this point. You know, I would like to be locking him, but he did have a lot of interruptions, so he goes into SP, which at least means he can't OTK me. He targets my set with the SP. Debating here on exactly what to do. and that is going to be the Dracotail Flame, so I'm not able to actually resolve that. Then he goes Ketu, but I do have the Fallen of Albaz at least to summon off of the Quem, which was probably a misplay, honestly, all things considered, since he did have the SP Little Knight. I did just notice watching back at that, definitely like summoning the Albaz there. I'm not sure why I did that, because I could wait until like his next play summoned the Albaz, so definitely a misplay. And then he's able to set both the Dracotail traps. He is on very little card advantage, and I do have enough follow-up, I feel like, at this point. Like, he just has to go Altharion attack, and then in the end phase gives me back the SP Little Knight, and then I do just go for Super Poly, which is the top deck, into Mirror Jade, and I just win the game from here, essentially. That's why Super Poly is just it's the best card in the mirror match by far, so you know, whether you're on Branded or Dracotail, I think the Super Poly definitely helps. And this is going to be my finals against Dana, aka Danasaur, on YouTube. She is going to be on Fiendsmith, or no, she's on Dragon Maid Dracotail, and she's going to be on Altharion, going Altharion into the Lucius and setting the Flame. And then she's going to go into basically just full combo. This is one of those versions of Dracotail that is very good and can make a very good end board. And it's just one of those things, when you lose die roll in these Dracotail mirrors, it really hurts, right? Because she's able to set up Secretarion on top of full combo with Dragon Maid, which is definitely a lot. So in this kind of situation, I really need to be seeing like double board breaker, but she has a huge board, right? Like 4 bodies that all do something on top of Ophilia Regis. Even Super Poly doesn't even get me out of this situation perfectly, but I'm going to try to play through it. I do go into Ketu, searching out the Urgula. I think I'm not going to really be too successful here, because then I have to fuse off 3 into Altharion to bounce 3, but she does have the Secretarion, so, you know, at least I get to trigger the Dracotail names in the graveyard. Which is pretty good, because Secretarion's only in the field, but she does have the Super Poly to fuse off the Altharion into the Mudragon. I set out double Rahu since I'm going second right now. I really have to have like basically Branded Fusion on top of like a normal board breaker to get over the Secretarion in order to win this board state. It's actually a pretty winnable board state too if I do have that situation. But you know, now with her Secretarion negated, I have the ability to go into Rahu, and I do just scoop from here because it's just not a good situation. So yeah, another one of those matchups where it's just super die roll dependent. I feel like maybe maining the Fuelos for that kind of thing definitely helps a lot. So in the future, maybe, you know, with post ban list looking like a ton of Dracotail, maybe maining Fuelos will definitely be the play. And now we're getting into game 2. I'm going to be going first, so it should be looking better for me, but she ends up double Fuelosing me, so that's definitely annoying. So I do just go Branded opening here to end up searching out the Aluber, or I guess chaining opening to the double Fuelos, and we search out the Branded Fusion. She has the Ash Blossom, and then I just have to set 2 at this point, so that's just kind of how it is sometimes. And she just has the Ketu Dracotail. She does only have 3 cards in hand at this point, but that's going to be enough for her to fuse off into Altharion and pop one of my back row. She also had a Malulu, which was a little annoying because I had a back row which basically would have allowed, I had fusion duplication, but at this point he could have Malulu'd wherever I summoned off the fusion duplication, so I kind of had to hope that the Urgula popped the set that wasn't my fusion dupe, and she popped the fusion dupe. So that was game. That was a very quick final, so not exactly the performance I had wanted, but you know, we got to the finals, we got second place, and I did really like the Allure package. I'm not sure if I prefer it over something like the Mulcharmies, but that's something we're going to have to keep testing going into the new format post-ban list with Frixel. So if you guys want to see more locals gameplays, let me know what you guys thought. I had a lot of fun making it more cinematic. Shout out to everybody at Genesis Locals. Love every single person there. Just my hometown locals, so do appreciate them. So yeah, guys, appreciate you guys watching. Leave a comment down below. Leave a like. If this video gets to 150 likes, we will do another one next week. And guys, let me know if you guys are going to be playing Branded or Branded Dracotail next format. With that being said, see you guys later. Click the join button, go to my website, pick up the spreadsheet, pick up some merch, all that fun stuff. Become a channel member, use your Twitch sub, all that fun stuff. We'll be seeing you guys later.